Hi 108. We are working this week on Unit 15 and 16. So I've combined two chapters because I'm not using all of the material in it. When you look at Unit 15, you can see that it starts out talking about the scale degree and how those chords will end up being for quality when you're working in a minor key. So on page 196, this is something that we'll take a look at in class. But what we want to make sure that you're comfortable with is that chord progression that we've been doing of 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 5, 1. Now we've spent a couple weeks perfecting that in major. That same chord progression is going to be one that you need to be comfortable with and familiar with in minor. So I've written it on my board here. So when we are doing this chord progression of 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 5, 7, 1, I didn't put the inversion numbers here. We'll put it in the same inversions that we did with major. And notice that just like I hope you see the importance of memorizing the finger movement in the major pattern, you can use that same idea in the minor pattern. Because if I'm in my 1 chord here and going to my 4 chord in that second inversion, it still is going to be bottom stays, 4th scale degree plays. Thumb, notice, is going to go up only a half step. In major, it went up a whole step. It's going up a half step here. That's because that's that minor third that is changing the quality of the scale from major to minor. Back to 1. When we do this chord progression, we are always going to do it in a harmonic minor based pattern, which means that our 7th scale degree is raised. So we are always going to do that 5-7 major. That means that movement from my minor 1 to my major 5-7 is going to be identical to what it was in the major pattern. Working from the top, stay, 4th scale degree plays, pinky down half a step. So this is an A minor. So if I set up a pattern in A minor, 1, 4, stay, 4th scale degree, and the top only up a half step. That's giving me a minor 4 versus a major 4 when we were working in our major key chord progression. 5-7, as I said, we're going to always base our chord progression on harmonic minor, which means a raised 7th is going to make that 5 major. So stay, 4th scale degree, down a half step. So identical to what we've been doing the last few weeks with major. So I encourage you to go through, build some minor 5-finger patterns. 1, 4, 1, 5-7, 1. And just thinking that really the only change is that half step going up to the 4 chord to get that minor third in there. So on page 196, it talks about 2 being diminished, 3 augmented, 4 minor, 6 major, 7 diminished as we work through. We're concentrating this week specifically on that chord progression going from 1 to a 4-6-4 to a 5-7. Your book then goes into harmonic minor scales. Remember that, as I said on last week's video, you are not responsible for any form of minor scales with 2 hands, 2 octaves for the proficiency. So that is something we will not be covering. You are responsible for knowing the arpeggios though. So as you know, I think practicing arpeggios by rote or memory is much better, but if you want a reference in the book, if you're working on 199 through 201 here, arpeggios are fine, scales we are not covering. So between units 15 and 16, I've chose 1 page of repertoire, 1 page of harmonization, 2 pages of sight reading from each unit that I think are important to do. So in repertoire, I would look at 202, which is a nice piece in A minor. It gets you used to just an A minor scale. It has you thinking about that 1 and 5 chords in minor. And then over in unit 16, you can take a look at page 211, which is very similar. It's an etude based on broken chords, so it's a great one that we'll be looking at class, thinking about big picture sight reading, forming it into chords, being able to visually see 1, 4, 6, 4, and 5-7s to help us with our accuracy in reading and playing. For harmonization, we've got 2 pages here. We've got 203, which is adding chord scale degrees mainly of minor 1, minor 4, major 5. We've got a couple of augmented 3s in there. Very easy melodies. So remember, when you're setting up your minor pattern, look at that major key signature, think what the 6th scale degree is, or think down 3 half steps to find your minor tonic. The other harmonization page that we will look at specifically in class is on page 217. And on page 217, you've got 2 examples where they've given you the chord entablature and 2 examples where the chord pattern is your choice. When you're working on the 2 entablature, remember to watch out for where they are asking for a specific inversion. So just like we saw in major, this is telling me a G minor chord with D on the bottom, which would mean second inversion. If you are not asked for a specific inversion, you may certainly place it in whatever is comfortable or whatever you prefer the sound of. Your quiz for this week is your choice of one of these 4 harmonizations on 216 or 217. You may use any bass style that you like. Your book does give you a prompt of a broken bass, a chorded bass, a waltz style bass. You can choose a bass that you think fits the character of the melody. It needs to just make sure that it's in minor. You need to make sure that if you're doing one that has specified inversions, that you're using those inversions. And before you play it, I would like to hear a chord pattern of minor 1, minor 4-6-4, minor 1, major 5-6-5, minor 1. For sight reading, I encourage you to look at 204, 205, and 214 to 215. I see I've got a misprint there. That's a big chunk of material. Sight reading, again, we'll do some of these in class, and as we continue to prepare for the proficiency, big picture, what can you boil it down to for reading, for preparing, because you only get that one shot at sight reading of playing it and being accurate. So units 15 and 16, these are my suggestions for pages. They're the suggestions of pages that I'll work on during class, but you certainly are welcome to peruse those units more. Important ideas is making sure that you're comfortable with this minor chord progression. Make sure that you've got your minor arpeggio fingerings memorized, and make sure that you're comfortable doing harmonizations in minor. You can expect to find a harmonization in minor on that proficiency.